Our deep black and white filter is designed specifically for black and white capture. Now with just a black and white filter or a black and white image straight out of the camera, it's nice because you don't have to do as much work in Photoshop to make them nice. Aside from, a few levels, maybe contrast adjustment and things like that. But if you want more control over your image, you definitely want to go for either the standard, enhanced, or the super color filter, even if you like black and white. As long as you know Photoshop pretty well. And here's a quick little tutorial that shows you the kind of things that can be achieved with a super color filter and making independent adjustments. For example, with our deep black and white filter, since the photo is black and white, the sky and the foliage are in grayscale. So if you were to make a selection, if you wanted to adjust, say, just the sky or the foliage, you would have to make a manual selection, which can take hours, depending on how intricate the details are in the skyline, or the separation between the foliage and the sky. With our standard filter, and even more so with our enhanced and color filter, you have a different color in the sky than you do in the foliage. And because of that, in Photoshop you can make selections based on color. So with a few clicks of your mouse, you can have a perfect selection isolating either the sky or the foliage. Let me show you how powerful these controls can be. With an image straight out of the camera, as you can see, the sky takes on a reddish tone and the foliage a cyan bluish tone. What we want to do is flip those so that way we get a blue sky and a reddish yellowish foliage. So let's go up to Image, Adjustments, and Channel Mixer, and let's make our red source channel 0 and our blue source 100. Switching to our output channel, make that blue, red source 100, and blue 0. So effectively swapping our channels. So now we have a blue sky and nice golden orange foreground. What we want to do now is also change the levels a bit. As you can see, the image is really dull, and this is pretty common for IR images. Let's go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels. As you can see, the histogram is centered right here. There we go. Our histogram is centered in the middle of this range, and we have no information in dark blacks and no information in bright whites. What we want to do is stretch this histogram across all the possible shades, giving us a much more dynamic image. And we do that by just dragging the black lever over right where the information begins in their histogram, and same for the white lever right there. And that brightens up our image, making it much more dynamic. Now let me go back to our histogram there just to show you what happens. As you can see, now our histogram does in fact start from 0 all the way up to 255 shades. So we have a whole entire 256 shades range, but we have gaps in our histogram where there is no information at all. And what that does is it can create banding, especially when you're printing in the sky element. And depending on severity of this these gaps in our histogram, it could actually cause banding everywhere in the image. So what you want to do before you make these adjustments is when you're bringing your image in from your raw converter, make sure you bring it in as a 16-bit image. It gives you much more range to make adjustments without destroying the image. Also, if it's a JPEG, you can go into mode and switch it over to 16-bit mode before doing any work on it. Okay, now I also want to boost the colors a little bit and make the image a bit more saturated. So let's try and drag the saturation lever up a bit. There we go. Now all the adjustments we've been making so far have been affecting the image globally. What we want to do now is make selections based on color, so that way we can control the elements independently. And let's go up to Image, and actually let's go to Select and Color Range. And what we want to do is make a selection based on color. Let's select the sky first. There we go. Make a selection of the sky and click OK. Now it's giving you a warning because you may not see this warning, but if you do, all this means is that nothing in the image has been selected greater than 50%, so we can't actually see those marching ants selection. Now the selection is still active right now, so what we want to do is create some adjustments that we want to use with this selection. The first thing that we can try is doing brightness contrast. And watch what happens when I adjust the contrast. You can see it's not very strong, but you can see that only the sky and the road is being affected. There we go. See? And it doesn't touch our foliage at all. So with this, along with other adjustments, let's cancel out of here. Yes, let's delete this layer, and let's make another layer, adjustment layer. Let's make this one curves. Okay, so watch this. Oops, I forgot to load our selection. And now we're affecting the image globally. Okay, so what we want to do is go back to selection color range and select our blues. And you can use the eyedropper tool as well to select exactly what you want. And it's giving you that warning again. Now the selection is active. Let's go ahead and make that curves adjustment layer again. And as you can see now, everything that we do, we're only affecting the blue part of the image. See? This is the before and after. Only just the blue part of the image. Now let's do the exact same thing with the sky, the foliage. Go up to select and color range. Oops, forgot to select the layer. I want the original layer, not the adjustment layer. Select color range, and we want to adjust just the yellows in the foliage. Okay. So we can actually see some marching ants. There are sections in the image where it is a greater than a 50% selection, so we can see those marching ants showing us that our selection is active. Okay, let's make our adjustment layer. And on this one, let's go to hue saturation just for fun. And watch what happens. We can change the hue just of the foliage without affecting the sky at all. Okay, so you can change this to whatever you like. You can change the saturation, make it less saturated, more saturated. You can make even more selections. You can just load one of these selections by holding down the control key and clicking on the channel, the adjustment layer whose selection you want to load, and we can make more adjustment layers. Let's say we want to make a curves or levels adjustment and just tweak that a little bit, brighten it up some more like this. There we go, to the foliage. And I am being pretty destructive, making dramatic changes just so that way it's more visible to you. Now, let's go ahead and make a black and white. Let's go to select the very top layer, so that way our black and white adjustments in the very top. And let's make a black and white adjustment layer. Okay, this basically makes the image black and white, but watch what you can still do. You can drag your reds, which happen to be the foliage, okay? And you can make them really dark or really white. Not that white, but and then same with the yellows. There's a bit of yellow in here. And then the cyans, which is the sky. See? You can basically make the sky just as bright as you want or as dark as you want. And then, by the way, you can go back and make adjustments to unhide certain things based on mask. So let me go ahead and make the sky really nice and dark. And basically, this shows you that you have much greater control with a supercolor or enhanced, and even the standard image, not to that big a degree as you can with the enhanced and supercolor, since with the standard filter, the foliage is grayscale, and the sky has a bit of blue or red in it, depending if you've done the channel swap or not. So with our layer stack shown, for example, if you want to undo changes that you've made to something in one of these adjustment layers, you just make sure the mask's selected, and with your black as your foreground color, select your paintbrush, And now you can selectively unhide certain things. As you can see, when I'm painting in, I am undoing what we've done with that section. If you want to redo it, of course, you can just swap to your white as your foreground and rehide just the sections you want, and make the sky, make the sky as deep as you want, and the road as dark as you want, separately from other elements in the image. So this gives you a much greater control. Let's say we can do the same exact thing with our foliage. See, we're making the foliage brighter, undoing the mask that we've done. Actually, we're showing the mask fully, and you can undo this by putting your black as your foreground color and rehiding certain elements of the image. So this shows you how much more control you have. I'm being very destructive to this. You definitely don't want it ending up looking like I have, but I just wanted to show you what's possible in the kind of controls. And I'm sure that just by looking at these and getting some ideas, you have probably already come up with a few others that you can try as well. So there you go. You can still use the supercolor, the enhanced, and the standard filters for black and white images, and it actually gives you more control. The image, it may not look exactly like the black and white filter because you're capturing a different IR range, but because of those colors, you can make independent adjustments to taste to however you want the image to look like. So it gives you control, but of course you're sacrificing the time working with it in Photoshop. If black and white is what you desire, if you want the color, then the only adjustments you need to make is your levels, your channel swap, and maybe the saturation control.